Welcome in Monday afternoon. We're a little bit late here, but sometimes you just got to do some yapping before the show gets started, right? I'm Jesse Montaño, going to be joined by Meghan Angley here in just a moment. We got John behind the glass today. Dream Team crew bringing another episode of Guerrilla Sports Off Ice to you. Got a fun episode today. We are going to unpack, of course, not just the gold medal game that we saw yesterday, which was an outstanding hockey game, but we are just going to give our overall thoughts on how the whole tournament went. NHL player participation back for the first time in a long time at the Olympics. We're going to get into all of it, what the win means for USA Hockey and what the loss means for Canada and where these two nations are actually stacking up as two, real hockey superpowers around the world. Where does the rest of the field stand as well? We're going to unpack all of that stuff, plus briefly look toward what to expect from this return to play here as the NHL jumps right back into action. Should be a really fun show for you guys. Do want to start by reminding you about our great partners over at Furniture Row. You guys have heard me say it. These are, not just the most comfortable couches that we've had here on the set, but this is the best looking the set has been so far. We absolutely love it, and it's all thanks to our friends over at Furniture Row, a family-owned company that offers high-quality home furniture at an incredible value. You would not believe the power of an enjoyable, hassle-free shopping experience. And look, if you've never been to a Furniture Row, you can shop your living room, dining room, bedroom furniture, kitchen, whatever, all in one place. They quickly made providing a superior shopping experience the cornerstone of the business. Over 100 locations nationwide. They want to make sure, does not matter where you are, you can experience shopping at Furniture Row. Like I said, over 100 locations nationwide, terrific selection, unbeatable value, and a knowledgeable staff. Head on over, check them out at Furniture Row or FurnitureRow.com. Also, do want to remind you guys about our long-standing friends over at RefiJet. If you don't know by now, you can save around $150 every single month. All it takes is soft credit pull and zero hassle. It's lower payments, it's flexible terms, maybe even some cash back in your pocket from your car's equity. Who couldn't benefit from that right now? It's tax season, right? Get some extra cash back in your pocket. Head on over RefiJet.com/sports. You guys hear me talk about it every episode. Best way to support us at Guerrilla Sports and the work that we're doing here on the show, covering the team, is by showing some love and support to our partners. Head on over RefiJet.com/sports. Fill out a form. See if they can't help you save some money. It is the faster, easier way to refinance. Hello, everybody. Welcome in Monday afternoon. And we are officially out of the Olympic break. I'm Jesse Montaño. That is Meghan Angley right there. Meghan, how are you doing?
I'm good. I'm ready for things to get back and going again. How are you doing?
Basically the exact same. I kind of, realized this morning, not realized, but I had that thought this morning. I was like, man, it has been a while since we've been in the building for an NHL game. So I'm looking forward to things getting back started. But, Meghan, I really enjoyed the last 3 weeks of Olympic, not only Olympic hockey, but just I'm a huge fan of the Olympics in general. It's so fun. There's always something to have on your TV. And truthfully, like, I just enjoyed getting to be a fan of the game the last few weeks and not having to, worry about going down to the locker room and asking questions and making content and doing all this stuff, just getting to soak it all up. So I've really enjoyed the last 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Did you watch the game yesterday? Get up at 6?
Unfortunately, yes. That's why I was so tired. I still feel tired. I think because I had Eagle stuff Friday, Saturday as well. I just was really exhausted this weekend. I think my sleep schedule's not been normal, but I got up. I'm glad I got up too. It was worth the watch.
It was such a great game, and that's going to be where we start with the conversation. Is on yesterday's game, because what a game to end just a fantastic tournament, Meghan. I guess let me actually start here. Your overall thoughts. How much did you watch a lot of the hockey over the last few weeks?
Yeah.
Okay. What were your overall thoughts on the quality of play, and just like it was so nice to see best on best again?
Yeah. From both the women's and the men's team perspective too, I think the differences were just how USA and Canada in the women's teams were so far ahead their peers in a
Yes.
lot of ways. I felt there was more parity than across the men's teams. And it made it so that some of the seating, the way that it worked out in the end, felt a little bit weird. And I just maybe was
Completely agree.
getting spoiled with it too, because the ending matchups were still really good,
Mhm.
which is a testament to that parity that I'm talking about with the men's groups, which made for then a really fun conclusion for the women's run, for the USA women's run too, how dominant it was.
Yep.
Just kind of undeniably. Whereas around the men's teams, I really loved what a lot of the different groups did. I thought, Slovakia showed up in a big way. Czechia, especially headed up by Martin Nečas, did wonderfully.
Jeez.
Finland, just hard to compete with because across the board, how tight they play was so much fun. And then the talent atop Canada was undeniable the whole way through.
Someone yesterday in the locker room described Finland to me as when they were up 2-0 on Canada, they were like, I was worried that's kind of like the Dallas Stars where they can just clamp it down.
Yeah, I think even in looking at the gold medal game, how it gets decided, USA's identity was different from Canada's, but Canada's was just so dominant with the star power that it featured. So as I'm saying it, like between the men's and the women's, there were differences, but it was fun. And then even within each country on the men's side of it, there were differences in the identities of the team. So it was fun to watch and to see how these players who don't ordinarily get to play together were able to find success in such a short window of time. I think some of that is the stylistic familiarity in the way that these teams play hockey. And then some of them have played together on Olympic teams, international teams before too. But it was fun to see other looks on power plays. There were familiar struggles at times, but most of the time it was just good. And so it was a lot of fun to watch. And then of course we'll get to it, but the role of goaltending in all of this too, like Erin Frankel for the women's team, making a huge difference. So obviously that came a storyline around the men's teams too.
Let's actually start with the women's side, because I there is something I want to bring up there, because I had an interesting conversation with, because I fully agree with you about like the US and Canadian women are really far ahead of the pack. But there was something else that I observed this year. And a really good Canadian friend of mine was actually the one that kind of reinforced it, where I went from, okay, no, I'm not being biased. My eyes are telling me what, is correct. Megan, it feels to me like the US women are even, and the word that my buddy used, who is Canadian, said the US women are close to lapping us up here. I think the US program on the women's side is not only years ahead of the international programs, but I think even here in North America, they have worked themselves to a point where, to me, I even see a clear difference between the US women and the Canadian women. And if I'm Canada, I'm really nervous about what Marie-Philippe Poulin is going to decide to do next, because there's talks that this may have been her last Olympics. And that game that they played against the US without her, it is clear she is the North Star of that program. And I just think that the US women, like, there should be a real point of pride. I thought they were head and shoulders above everybody, and that even includes Canada, in my opinion.
I think too, it wouldn't be fair to talk about having the PWHL kind of in this conversation without acknowledging that other pro women's leagues have tried to exist before this, and then even international options opened up professionally for women to pursue. But I just don't know if there's been as stable an option as this, because what I'm connecting it to is the D1 programs that women outside of the US have been able to compete for. But I just think that has been a pathway that's so natural for a lot of USA women that I think that is where I would make the connection to development and than just the resources around getting women to those D1 programs that exist in the United States, maybe being a part of why we've seen the women's game for the United States take off the way that it has. And then having some more consistency, stability within the PWHL has only helped to elevate it. And I think that's still benefiting Canada and USA women's players generally. But I think that D1 connection is where I would go to first in speculating as to why the American women have had the success that they've had.
Yeah. And you and I talked about it just privately off the air of like the PWHL is going to help not just the US and Canada, but those international programs as well. You know, Finland, Sweden, Czechia, like they're going to have women who aspire to come over and play in the PWHL and will come over and play in the PWHL, which will, you know, raise the skill floor of those teams as well. I loved Kendall Caulfield. Kendall Coyne's post-game presser. You know, she talked a lot about, you know, how proud she was, you know, very standard kind of post-game presser. And then the last question, she was asked, so what are you going to do next? And she goes, well, I got to get back. We have a game on the first.
Games to return to.
And she said, this is the first time that light on the the light on the women's hockey won't go dark after the Olympics. And that was, I even just got chills a little bit again. Like when she said that, I was like, that is such a profound statement. Cause like you said, there have been leagues that have attempted to, you know, stand up and be a pro league for women, but it never with the cohesiveness and the continuity that the PWHL has brought. And I just thought that was such an excellent answer because, you know, unfortunately that probably has been the case. Like it was amazing to see Hilary Knight score to tie the game late and then win in overtime. Megan, that's not even the most exciting US Canada women's gold medal game that I can personally remember.
Right.
This product has always been great at this level. And it feels like it happens at the Olympics. And for so many years, it's gone away. But like, there's a takeover game next month here in Denver.
Right.
And it's so exciting to get to see the fact that like, you hope that this Olympics being the first Olympics where the PWHL exists adds as another springboard and another boost to the PWHL and viewership and attendance and all that stuff, because you just got a really nice dose of it. And instead of it going away for 4 years, no, you can, if you are in Colorado, you can go to a game featuring all those same players next month, live in person.
Yeah. And it never, you know, over the last several seasons, it never fully disappeared.
Right.
Even after the Olympics. But they've not had this many games in a season for the professional women's leagues that have existed previously to return to. And this 1 year to the next, they added more to the PWHL schedule. So I think there's just so much more opportunity to watch women's hockey. It's so accessible too, with them streaming the games on YouTube. So you can absolutely continue to stay tuning in. And there are young players like obviously Hilary Knight and Marie-Philippe Poulin, veteran players for their teams who have led the way in women's hockey. But there are young players like Caroline Harvey's tournament and Hannah Bilka that there's some youth to get excited around. And so whether it's, you know, a young player in Bilka who's in the pro leagues now or Harvey who's returning to her college team, there's just so much to get excited about in the future of women's hockey too.
No, I completely agree. And you're right. It hasn't, like, for the players, it hasn't gone dark in the past, but like this is definitely, just like you said,
the most light to return
that's
to.
right. Exactly. That's a great way of putting it. And I think, the light is shining the brightest. And I think more people are shining that light now than ever. And again, you hope that, I mean, an amazing gold medal game for the women as well, an unbelievable OT winner, all that stuff that you hope that brings even more shine, more excitement, more of a spotlight to the PWHL. But like I said, and someone was in the chat saying the Canadian women brought a veteran team. That is true. You and I were talking about that the other day, that they left a lot of, of the younger players at home. But like I said, there is a sense of like the US program. And I think what you said about Division I and NCAA is a great call out, but like my eyes told me that, the U.S. women are better, clearly. And I think that's a little bit of the growing sentiment as well.
And I think it will continue to be neck and neck. I think it's competitive. And so I think it's the first time in a little bit, though, that was more seriously considered, that the women's team for USA has solidified that they can win gold.
Clear advantage. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, and I'm with you. And I do think, again, my hope is that you eventually get to the point where the parity across the entire tournament on the women's side is closer to what it was on the men's side. But ultimately, I think if the U.S. does kind of pull away here, I'm with you. I don't think it'll be like long term.
I still think back to our conversations around Nella Lapuchanova and how,
yes,
or even just like Austin Matthews out of Arizona. Like there are so many hockey phenoms in markets that just their youth hockey is still growing.
Did Lapuchanova play, or is she still not old enough?
She's 17, so I don't know what.
No, I think
that's still too young.
We just looked it up, and I believe for hockey it's 18. See, because I thought she was 18 this year. Because she was 16.
She turns 18 in a few days.
Oh, fuck. So, I mean, she'll be there next cycle, no doubt.
But
yeah,
it's just there is a lot of talent outside of US and Canada on the women's side that has not been tapped into just yet. And a lot of it's programs, and those need funding and resources, and that needs an appetite for it. And so this type of a tournament helps to fuel that appetite for the women's game, so that hopefully those programs grow across the board moving forward.
Yep. I'm totally with you. Do you know what Nella Lapuchanova is doing next year?
She going to college.
Wisconsin.
Oh, wow. That's where Harvey's at.
So she's going to Wisconsin for the 26-27 season.
That's so exciting.
That's awesome. That's big. And there you go. Division I NCAA.
And that's why, too, I don't want to make it sound exclusive to American women. International women have leaned on the NCAA as well through this point. I hope, too, that it's this cycle then that the growing support around the women's game just means more D1 opportunities, open up more schools, invest in their D1 teams. Anyways, I'm getting lost in the sauce here, but I hope that it has that trickle down effect, just as the passion for women's hockey grows.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay.
The other thing, sorry, I saw criticisms of the gold medal game. Passes not connecting, and a struggle to see plays unfold the way you see in NHL, right? Tic-tac-toe plays. I think in the women's game, in that game specifically, there was a lot of fatigue, because I've watched a decent amount of women's hockey now, and I just feel like that's the kind of take from someone who hasn't watched much women's hockey otherwise.
She was not at the Olympics this year because they didn't qualify on the women's side. So she played in Olympic qualifying matches, 11 goals, 18 points in 6 games. And Slovakia did not qualify on the women's side. So that's why she wasn't there. So there you go. We got one. We got a hot one from our guy Vaguely on the super chat line. DU needs a women's team, not a club team. That would be fun.
I used to think about that.
That would be really fun.
Yeah, that'd be so fun. It'd be super easy. Like first season ticket holder sitting on this set right now.
Dang, you said something there. Oh no. I told you because I also felt like there wasn't a lot connecting. I don't even necessarily think fatigue per se. I told you, I said I didn't think the US was gonna tie it up, because it felt like there's a lot of sticks in lanes. There's a lot of bodies. There's a lot of, skates, shin pads. I just felt like that was very concerted effort from Canada to not give much. That was how I saw it.
No, I think that's another good call out, because I just felt like people were using it to dunk on the women's game so broadly. Like unable to make passing plays at that level, and that's not the case at all.
And I do also think, because I know for me personally, like it's definitely a little bit of a slower game than the NHL.
The pace
but
is
like
definitely different.
But like talking about NHL versus literally anything else, and that's going to be the conversation. Anything else from the women's side for right now?
Not for now.
There'll be a billion more things that you and I think of. All right, let's switch over here because Megan, it was the parity for me that made the men's side of this tournament so much fun. Every single game, it felt like, with minor exceptions. Geez, I think 4 games total, maybe 5 total across the entire tournament, got to a point where it was like, this team's comfortably, running away with this one. There was the one game against Italy. That was it. Czechia, who was it? Ran the score way up on Italy. There was the Canadian game against France that ended up 10-1. Unfortunately, there was the semifinal game, US-Slovakia, that was kind of a dud, with the US kind of running away with it. But other than that, it felt like every game was tightly contested. Even the team that you felt was like the overwhelming favorite had to earn every bit of ice. I just thought it was so fun and a real testament to how much the players cared about this, that even though you had Canada, which was maybe the most impressive group of skater talent that we've ever seen put onto a roster, like teams were playing them really, really tough. And the way that Finland played was so impressive. Against Canada and Sweden, despite Markstrom's struggles throughout the regular season, turns in an excellent performance against the US, and they, tie a game late. I just had so much fun watching pretty much every game over the last 3 weeks. It was just great hockey.
Yeah, there was always something worth tuning in for, no matter the matchup.
And you had players, Juraj Slafkovský rising to the occasion. Martin Nečas, not just the best player for Czechia, one of the best players in the entire tournament. If you're talking MVP, Martin Nečas had a real strong case for being the most valuable player to his team. It was just a blast. I want to hear from Marty real quick, so we've got it queued up. Just before we do that, just thoughts on Martin Nečas and what he was able to do for Czechia here over the last few weeks.
Yeah, I think that his role for his team will be one of the more significant storylines to come out of these Olympics because of question around his ability to perform in the playoffs in the past. And our only body of work to go off of in Colorado was these last playoffs in the Dallas series. And I thought that the intent behind a lot of what he was doing was good and reflective of Avalanche hockey, which to me showed growth. And I remember just some distinct moments of him coming off the ice ahead of overtime on the road in Dallas, and you could see he really cared. There wasn't a lack of engagement or care in what he was doing. And so even though maybe the production wasn't to where the Avs needed it to be, because they needed that from everyone, that was a demand not met by everyone in that Dallas series. I think it was held against him maybe a bit unfairly. And the Martin Nečas I saw in that series was so similar to what I saw, but it translated to results in these Olympics for Czechia. And it was a player who stepped up in big moments when the lights were brighter.
Can I lob something at you that's something you've talked about as it relates to Marty, just to give you a chance to expand on that more relative to what you just said?
For sure.
Because I'm with you that I felt effort-wise, the way he cared, all that stuff, I saw a very similar player. It felt to me, and again, you were the one who brought this up initially, and you've talked about it a lot, that it almost felt like Marty, the effort was there, the passion was there, everything you wanted to see out of Marty in those playoffs was there, except it felt like he was trying to play a game that wasn't true to him. And so it led to him being ineffective. I felt like you saw that all come together where he did a lot of those same things that you were just describing from that last year's playoff, but he did it true to who he is as a player. And those are the results that came out of it.
Yeah, I think he was still in an adaptive time in that identity with the Dallas series. in his checking game in particular. And I think he had to find what that looks like in a way that makes sense for him, because he's not going to be the most hulking physical player on the ice, but he still can have a checking game that is effective. I think Brock Nelson does a good job of this too, especially with respect to his line where Val Nichushkin's going to be a little bit more of a physical force. Martin Nečas, another player who's tall and long and can use his length to his advantage to win a reach to a puck, and add an extra stride because his skating is so good, can win a race to a puck. And then it's just a matter of being strong on the puck. So you don't necessarily have to be the most physical player on the ice. You just have to be willing to engage physically. And so I think a lot of that is true of Martin Nečas in these Olympics. And then the skill side, that was the part that I think he strayed from too much of in the Dallas series in favor of trying to maintain a solid checking game. And that's what I think he allowed to be true to himself in these Olympics, is he's a highly creative, skilled player. And sometimes, it's to his detriment. There's too much going on. I really thought he found a good rhythm with his creativity and his teammates and recognizing their strengths, their talents, and finding them on the ice. That's going to be really beneficial to what he's trying to do with the Avs and how he creates offensively with the likes of Nathan MacKinnon.
And he got to be the guy. He was who Czechia was like. David Pastrnak's a great player. He made a big play in the game against Canada, scored a goal, but like it was the Martin Nečas show for Czechia, and I think that's also not insignificant that he handled, was able to handle that, had the spotlight, had the pressure, had the expectations, and flying colors. He is big. We don't talk about that enough.
He's big.
There was so much conversation about when they traded Mikko, like, oh my gosh, someone who's that big and plays that fast. Da, 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 da. I'm so glad you said it. When we were talking to him yesterday, he was standing. I don't know if you can see me in the shot. There's one point where I actually looked down to see if he's wearing shoes or skates or whatever. So I was just sitting there. I was like, man, I haven't realized that you're a big motherfucker. Like, he's a big dude.
Yeah, and not the biggest, right? You
Right.
put him next to Val Nichushkin,
Right.
not the biggest guy. Like, he's long and lean, but especially on his line, he represents a little bit of height in terms of size, and there are still advantages to that.
He's not built, genuinely, he's not built that dissimilar from Mikko Rantanen. Mikko's 6'4".
He's 6'3".
Long and lean. Martin Nečas is 6'3". Like, again, purely size, build, comp, like kind of Mikko Rantanen. Like, it's kind of that.
I don't want to take like side swipes at Mikko too, but Mikko didn't necessarily use his size because Mikko's got the height and the width.
Yes, yeah, he's thick.
Whereas I think Marty's more height than width, but still solid. And I just didn't think that Mikko used the height and width together the way you would expect.
I so agree, to the point that when he did that interview right before the game in Finland, where he was like, yeah, I grew 12 inches in my draft year. I was like, oh, so you played your whole life like an undersized player, and now you don't know what to do with this giant frame you got.
I think Dallas is trying to mold him into
a goon.
I don't even know what they're trying to make him into. It's their decision. They get to, it's out of our hands now. We don't have to worry about that. Yeah. But I do think that there's more of an emphasis around what Mikko's been doing in Dallas this year.
How about that line of Rantanen, Lehkonen, and Aho? All right, here's Martin Nečas yesterday from practice. First chance we got to talk to him after returning from the Olympic Games.
Marty, what was that experience like for you in total, the full 2 weeks?
Yeah, it was unreal. Something that I always, and all of us that were there, that dreamed of, and it was great. Just the result wasn't, just like we wanted.
For you personally, it seemed like your game kind of went to another level. Just how were you feeling as in your game out there?
Yeah, I felt good. I was so excited for it that in my mind I had no doubt that I'll be good, and I was just for every game I was so pumped up because it's such a big and important games, and we've been waiting so long. So it was good, and I wish we would be battling for the medals, but that's past and in the past, and now I'm happy to be back here and battling for the Avs.
You get to
play with a lot of high caliber players over there too. What have you been able to take away from that experience playing with some of the best of your country?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's great, but so do I here. You know, such a great team here. So obviously it's different guys. It was super nice to be always in the locker room with all the Czechs and play for the Czechs because they're really passionate about hockey, and you know, it was great. It was great.
What's it like playing against, you know, 3 guys for Team Canada, your teammates in a big game like that, and you were their teammate a week earlier, your teammates are a week later? Like, what's that experience like? Yeah,
it's a challenge, and you know, we all love to compete, and you know, I don't want to lose to them. Unfortunately, I did, but you know, it's great, and obviously all of the guys that are there are unbelievable players, and you know, happy for Nelly for what he did, and you know, a lot of guys got medals, so good for them. And once we get here, that's in the past, and we just focus on our game here.
Did the better team win today?
Maybe not the better team. On the paper, I feel like they were pretty even. In the game, I think Canada had more chances, but that's the way it goes, you know. And it's kind of tough that it ends in the overtime that it goes 3-on-3. I don't think that's really fair, but yeah, both teams played great. You know, I didn't really care who's going to win because we got guys on the teams from for both of them.
And what have you thought about the chance you had late against Canada? Does that stick with you, or do you just kind of move on from that?
Yeah, well, definitely it was in my head, and nothing I could do about it after, you know, just don't know really what to say. We had chances in overtime as well, but yeah, that's the way it goes.
Not that you needed the boost in confidence, but does performing like that against in a best-on-best tournament kind of give you a boost down the stretch going into the playoffs here?
Yeah, I think it's good, and just like I said before, I was so excited, and I feel like every time I'm so excited about the games, and then I play good and show my best, and I feel like that was the case there.
There was like a lot of close games, a lot of 3-on-3. Do you have any thoughts on a tournament like that going to 3-on-3 in overtime?
Yeah, I feel like once it gets to playoffs, I don't think that should be a case. You know, you battle so hard and you wait for so long that then, you know, maybe it should be decided 5-on-5, golden goal. I know that it doesn't really work in the quarterfinals when you have games after games, and if it goes to 3 overtimes, you kind of delay the other game. It doesn't really work, but you know, that's just one of the things that they do, and I feel like it was a great tournament, and you know, yeah, I don't know.
You said you didn't get the result you guys wanted, but the performance you guys gave and how tough you played Canada, how big is that for Czech hockey?
Yeah, that was great for sure, but I think where it went the wrong way, I feel like it was against Swiss, where we should have won. If we got the win, we wouldn't face Canada in the quarterfinals, and you know, maybe it would be a little easier to get it to semifinals, but once we played that game, I feel like we played our best, we gave our best, and it was a tight game, so it was good.
How excited are you for the home stretch here with the Avs?
Yeah, really excited. Obviously, it's a lot of games in not many days, but just keep focusing on recovery, keep playing game by game, and you know, keep getting ready for the playoffs.
All right, that was Martin Nečas yesterday at practice. You mentioned it while we were watching it. You can tell it still stings.
Yeah, I was just about to say too. He says, just want to keep focusing on my game. It's come a long way in Colorado since the trade, and that just deserves some respect and recognition for Martin Nečas. I'm really glad they extended him because he's been putting in work, I think, to round out his game in a way that I imagine Carolina fans could look at this current version of Martin Nečas and maybe they've been burned before and they're like, no, I've seen this trick before. Or maybe they would see, like, I actually think that he's evolving as a player. And I'm really proud of the growth he's shown. I wanted to go on a side quest, if it's okay.
Yes, I just wanted to, quick, relative to what you're saying about Carolina fans, I feel like the criticism against him was that he was soft when he got here. And I think he went out of his way to try to correct that, like we were saying a minute ago. Evan Rowell sent a tweet during that Canada-Czech game where he said, Martin Nečas is playing big boy hockey out here. That, to me, is where the growth has been. He he plays a different type of game. He's more comfortable in that type of game now.
Yeah, and I think it's steadier. Like in terms of production, it can sometimes be a little bit spotty. And there's games where he appears disengaged maybe for a few shifts, and then he has a game-breaking moment, a timely goal. And so I think he's really good at course correcting inside of games when maybe he does the engagement slipping just a little bit. I think he's really good because there's a lot of pressure around him to step up.
Yep.
And I think he does it, and it's now stringing together a more consistent result with respect to that.
I agree.
I wanted your opinion on Radko Gudas. Like the role he plays in these Olympics, big hitter, injures Sidney Crosby, and he's not available for Canada in the gold medal game. I found myself a little conflicted because I thought what Gudas brought for Czechia was really important, a really necessary element represented in their game to be harder to play against. So there was a part of me before the injury, I'm like, wow, I'm glad they have this guy. You know, I'd hate watching him play against the Avs, for example, but I can see the value of a player like that right before my eyes. And then it results in an injury, which I think changes the conversation a little bit. But I kind of wanted your perspective because we'll be looking at the Avs adding at the deadline, not at this player, just a player who brings physicality and a little bit of that edge. I'm like, well, it kind of makes sense. I don't know if Czechia would have had the results they did without a player like that represented.
So I'm gonna use a player in Tom Wilson as my how I'm gonna bounce this answer back and forth. Tom Wilson, I think it was at the beginning of that gold medal game, or maybe it was against Finland. I mean, just went out early and laid a massive hit on the forecheck. Has the moment against France where he gets into the fight defending Nathan MacKinnon. This is Tom Wilson. And like you said, I sit there and I see the utility in having a player like that brings that element. In my opinion, where I see it different, and I know they play different positions, but I see so much value to Tom Wilson's game outside of that stuff. As where for Gudas, I still see him as what you described as why you would bring him as the only real reason you'd bring him. And I don't know how I feel about that, truthfully. And that's a bad answer, but
no, because I've been thinking about it for days and I also still don't have a conclusion. I'm not comfortable with where this ended. It's not just because of the injury to Sidney Crosby. That's the risk you run with a player who toes the line like that. And similarly, it's hard to reserve a roster spot for a player whose contribution is perhaps a bit one-dimensional like that.
And now for Czechia, I get it because your options are limited in terms of NHL talent to begin with. And obviously, you have to say this about Gudas, he's an everyday NHLer. That's just a fact. That's not an opinion. He plays every night for the Anaheim Ducks.
Yeah, and he serves a similar role. Right. And they have a really young back end, so he also is just experience, which is super valuable. They can afford the roster spot for those different things then.
And captain of that team, so I'm sure that there's some strong leadership qualities, stuff like that. I mean, I'm just going back here. I mean, the dude's been in the league for over 10 years. I'm not trying to take anything away from him, but I just sit there and that to me is a player that as the career progresses, I really do just see more and more of a guy who fills that role. Again, maybe a strong locker room role that we don't get to see, but I don't know. I'm lukewarm on one-dimensional players as it is, especially if that one dimension is physical enforcer.
I don't know. Maybe he deserves a little bit more credit. I'm pulling up what his time on ice is averaged, but I think that he plays really big minutes. And so it's not like Curtis McDermott. I think it's the clear distinction to make here. There's the leadership, big minutes, certainly a penalty killer, kind of a stay-at-home defenseman type. I don't know. I'm still really conflicted on it, as you can tell. I feel like it did make a difference in Czechia's identity having a player like that represented. And for the Avs, it could be Manson, but because Manson has the skill that he has, you don't want a player like that needlessly putting himself at risk of getting hurt.
I just think that that's a player. And again, I don't think the Anaheim Ducks are trading Radko Gudas, so I'm not sitting here talking about that.
No,
like,
I don't mean him literally.
Right. But I just don't think that, and I think mentioning what you just did about Josh Manson and the Avs really developing some more tools with him and helping him lean into other parts of his game. I just don't think that the Avs and really many teams that are at the top of the league that pour a lot of time and money into their decision making and follow analytics, and I just don't think they're interested in players like that. Did you listen to the Parker Kelly interview I did with him a couple days ago? I think on Saturday, where he credited the Avs for finding a new offensive side of his game that he didn't have before. Like, I don't think the Avs are interested in guys that are just there to bring that mean, nasty element. I think it's nice to have that, but we want you contributing in a lot of areas.
So I think that's fair to say. And I guess I don't mean that they would only bring this, but I feel like that's going to be in consideration around this deadline. I've said it before. I think there's going to be an emphasis on a player who absolutely has a little bit of a physical edge and meanness. They also have to have other tools. And I'm using Gudas as an example as when that edge can be an advantage, and why I think they're probably highly skilled players, but I think they're going to also have to have this to be considered. So
I think that's fair. I think that's more than fair.
Yeah, because I don't know that in past deadlines they've weighted meanness, physicality, grit very much at all, and I think that this will have a little more weight this deadline than before.
I think the last time they did it was Josh Manson.
I agree.
And that went really well.
I think it's hard to find players who can play at the Avs pace and also have this element in their toolkit. I just get the sense that it's become more important this year in looking at games they've lost, where they've been out-muscled, out-battled. It's not for a lack of trying, especially in Jared Bednar's high buy-in system. And that's where I'm going with it.
And I think you're totally right. And I think maybe that what you just said is a better way of saying it than, like, you know, not just one dimensional, but just the Avs system is a tough one to play in. You and I have talked about Ryan O'Reilly, different player, different position, and, you know, still a really, really effective player in the NHL, very productive. And you and I have had that conversation about, like, would he fit with this group given the pace that they like to play at, his foot speed, things like that. So maybe that's a better way of putting it, of can you find a player that can play with that edge while also being effective in your system? Because Jared Bednar talks about all the time that their system takes 5 guys to make happen the way they want it to. Can you find that combination of a player?
Would you say a whiskey drinker? Do you see the quote? Honestly, though, it kind of makes sense for what I'm trying to describe, because you don't want someone who can only drink whiskey. That's going to be, it's also going to be really bad. I don't want to get too lost in the metaphor. I tend to do that.
I did think whiskey versus milk was an interesting.
So, well, these are only 2 options. That's how I've heard other hockey people talk about it. So it's a common, like, coin of phrase, but and the whiskey drinkers, they do matter. And the thing is, I think the Avs have somewhere in between. Like, I wouldn't describe them as milk drinkers either. And I think Manson's a whiskey drinker, I would say.
I feel like you either have whiskey drinkers or you have, like, you know, frozen margarita drinkers. Like, I feel like that's like whiskey and milk. That's like, you couldn't have 2 more. Like, I don't know. And maybe that's
so sorry for this tangent, because now I need to know what our middle ground beverage is, because I think that better represents most of the Avs.
All right. Next pyramid shows a 3-tier pyramid. What are the beverages? Because I think the Avs have a lot of whatever this middle ground beverage is. And that's where it's like maybe a little more whiskey represented. I don't really know that there's milk. I don't even want to accuse it. And that's what I'm saying. Like
I hate it now.
I feel
sorry.
Like
Chardonnay.
We have whiskey drinkers and milk drinkers. Like you don't want any milk drinkers, right? Like milk drinkers. If the positive alternative is oh, taking a shot of whiskey. Like, to me, like, you like milk drink. Like, what?
I do think the Avs have tried to move away from any players that would be described as soft, because I think they've had players that are really high puck skill players, maybe a bit small, and that's all they do. And it just doesn't last long. It doesn't work out for very long. So
drop in the chat. What is the middle ground drink between whiskey and milk? Because there has to be something.
We've got Chardonnay, red wine.
I feel like red wine is a
lager,
decent one.
Cider.
All right, keep
like
those...
a sour.
Yes, right. Like something that's like, ooh, you gotta like your drinks to have. Keep it coming in the chat. What's the in between milk and whiskey?
Oh, milk drinkers would be players who aren't legally old enough to drink.
All right. So fair.
I just don't feel right describing Macklin Celebrini
as a milk drinker. I don't either.
I think he plays with a little bit of an edge.
And like, doesn't milk drinker just sound like derogatory?
It does.
Like,
maybe we're just not bought into the drinks that we were given here. We just don't accept the system. We want to break it and start a new one.
Right. Like, I don't know. Can you have a Sprite drinker? They're a little spicy. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I'm honestly imagining some kind of a health drink that's only for the benefits, not for the flavor, like a wheatgrass shot. They're practical.
An AG1. Hey, if AG1 is listening.
Yeah.
Get on this list.
It's practical. It serves a purpose, and it only serves that purpose. There's no time for fun.
Right. Yeah. Oh, wow. There might even be more than 3 drinks. I don't know. This is another pod topic.
Anyways, this was such a side quest. I really just wanted to wow, physicality and meanness can matter sometimes.
And that's where I do think, and we put a bow on it. Like I do still think that I think you have the old school, you need enforcers fighting and all that stuff. And then you have the really progressive hockey minds of no, do away with fighting and make all the players wear cages and both, and I still think there's that middle ground where just so everyone knows, the reason that on the men's side, NHL as opposed to PWHL, the reason they're not allowed to wear full facial coverage because fighting is allowed. And if you go mix it up with somebody and you have a cage on your face, that is not fair. You can do some harm to somebody. So that's why you're not allowed to wear it on that side. It's not a matter of, safety and all that stuff. Well, I mean, I'm sure to an extent, but
sorry, our chat's really funny. Avs definitely have one whiskey drinker, a lot of lager drinkers, one spinach smoothie drinker.
I love that. But where I'm going with that is I do still think the meanness and the edge serves a purpose within the context of the game. I do.
No, I do too.
How much? I don't know.
Right. Not so much that you sacrifice any and all puck skill and pace, because the Avs require a little bit of both.
Yes. There's a comment up the way a little bit that said, did Hellebuyck beat the alligator? Keep going.
Yeah, it was early.
Keep going. A little bit more. Right there. Has Hellebuyck changed his narrative? With all that, you heard Martin Nečas talk about 3-on-3. Let's shift our attention to the gold medal game. Canada, US. Megan, maybe... I hesitate to say this because it is a really strong statement and I can't actually sit here and think of it. Maybe the greatest goaltending performance I've ever seen. Patrick Waugh, Game 6, 2001, I think is up there. But I mean, that was unbelievable. I think it was 4.8 expected goals against.
I feel bad because we've already talked about so many things in the show, and this just opens a new can of worms with respect to the gold medal game in general. Because
John, is there anybody behind us on the schedule? This might just be a long show, folks.
Perfect. Because one, just the overview of the game. I know you kind of alluded to this, but it wasn't just that Canada was producing at high volume. They were really quality chances. So this absolutely is a goaltending conversation. Hellebuyck played out of his mind. There's several key saves that come to mind. The paddle save on Devon Toews in particular. He was lights out. So that's part of it. And then the other side of that coin is just how well Canada played.
Yeah.
And what I think is interesting, the other tangent I'll go on, we don't have to go on it now, but we could put a pin in it, is I think this was so reflective of what some of those Dallas games felt like for the Avalanche, where process-wise, 5v5, they were doing everything to create how they ordinarily like to, and there were some strong defensive efforts, good lane management on Dallas's side that made that difficult.
They were dictating the way the game was played.
Right. I felt that was really true of this gold medal game. And so I think something like this will be ultimately positive, though probably sting for players like Makar, MacKinnon, Toews, because hopefully it's kind of out of their system in a way of what it's like to run into games like these, because Ottinger played out of his mind in the Dallas series. Hellebuyck played a hell of a game for the gold medal game in particular. And sometimes that's what it is. That's what you're up against, especially when the margin for error is so thin. I think that's what it was on the Canada side of things, and USA, they hung on. I thought the drop of the puck, they played really aggressively, but it was still hard for USA to keep up with Canada as the game wore on in particular. And so they were just kind of enduring a lot of it. The other thing I'll say, USA's penalty kill was unbelievable.
Crazy.
I walked away like, I think the Avs penalty kill is great, but I'd be looking at that.
Mm-hmm.
I'd be looking at that to just kind of jot some notes, replicate a lot of what brought it success. Some of that's goaltending too. But that was the other thing too, like not to take away from USA winning gold. That penalty kill by itself was worthy of the conversation. The 5-on-3 that they kill early in that game sets the tone. So yeah, lots of thoughts swimming around up there. Those are the initial ones off the top.
You and I have, joked in the past about Hellebuyck in the playoffs of like, maybe it's because he's exhausted from playing 80 games in the regular season. And really, Megan, that was kind of what was going through my mind watching that yesterday is like, yeah, no one has ever doubted the fact that Hellebuyck can dial it up to this level. And my brain goes back a lot to the 2013-14 season with Varlamov, where he played well above his career average. And by the time he got to game 7 of that first round, I mean, you could even like see like his shoulders even like, were like slunked a little bit, and it affected his play. And I think that what you see yesterday, guy, it was so early in the morning yesterday.
It really felt like it was 2 days ago.
What you see yesterday from Hellebuyck is like, no, he can get to that level when, he's not having to play the entire season leading up to that. And I say that obviously
even
in jest
Ottinger was worn down,
right?
Come Western Conference final. So,
and I think that's a sneaky thing that the Avs have going for them right now. We're not going to get into it right now, but
right.
A sneaky
what do you
thing
mean?
like,
we're just talking about everything that comes to mind.
But I mean, wow. I like I said, I as I sit here and I know there have been some amazing goaltending performances, over the years in the NHL, in international play. Carey Price at the last Olympics the NHL were at, I think gave up like 2 goals the entire tournament. The stakes of that game, and look, I'll be the one to say it, as thoroughly outplayed as his team was, what Connor Hellebuyck did in that game yesterday, like I said, that might be the greatest goaltending performance I've ever seen. It was unbelievable, and he deserves every bit of it. The Devon Toews one in particular, not only is that an incredible paddle save, it's an outstanding pad save as well before that rebound falls in the blue paint. And I mean, Devon Toews has a long stick. He's got a long reach. He puts that puck home 99 times out of 100. It's just an unbelievable play from Hellebuyck.
Yeah.
And like you said, the several high danger quality saves. And the part to me that I was sitting there going, if I'm Canada, I'm worried. They looked easy. He made saves look easy by being in the right spot, anticipating passing lanes. He's a big guy, so he can play a little bit further back in the paint than most goalies and still take up a lot of room, which means There's less of an angle for him to have to cut down on when he's moving side to side. And then even the empty net that Nathan MacKinnon missed, like there's that still shot that's going around that makes it look really bad. If you see where Hellebuyck's at in the paint, like, look, I'm sure Nate still would have liked to get that on net. It has a better chance going in than not, probably. But like, Hellebuyck wasn't wildly out of that play. And I guess that's kind of where I'm going with this. He just felt like he was always at least in position to make the save. Even the goal that beats him, he gets a piece of it.
I think, too, what's worth noting in that is when the team playing opposite you picks up on that, there might be a little bit more hesitation in their shot selection because they're trying now to beat a goaltender who is so clearly on. That could lead to a delayed decision by just the slightest bit, seconds difference, right? Second guessing, it affects the confidence of the shooters. And so I think that's a little bit of what you see happen to Canada too. And that is born from Hellebuyck playing so well. And that's an added advantage to a goaltender who's having an odd night, and kind of seeing everything, getting a little bit of everything. It can trickle into some of your best elite shooters second guessing themselves, and it creates problems.
When Cale scored, when he got that pass and kind of like walked into that lane, I out loud, I went, shoot it, Cale. He in particular was one guy that I thought had exactly what you were just describing. I thought had several lanes and passed up on him in favor of, what was a really deceptive fake shot, look off pass. But the passes either didn't connect, or Hellebuyck was able to make the save, or the shooter, he had to put too much zip on it and they had to, dust it off for a second. And I think there was some of that was, I think you're spot on, Megan, in the head of some of their shooters are like, well, I'm not going to beat him clean.
Right.
When Cale Makar finally took a lane, hey, you're elite too. You can beat him clean if you get, a lane, a shot. But I think you're totally spot on, Megan. I think he was in the shooters' heads for Canada.
A lot of goaltending is good PR over the course of the game. And they're like, I don't know, this guy's really good. I don't know if I can beat him. Like, well, you've seen a very different version of Hellebuyck,
right.
Cale Makar.
Right.
So let's all regroup here for a second.
But I mean, look, he was the difference. And I think that's something like, look, you lost the game. It doesn't, change anything. But I think if you're Canada, that's something that you can hang your hat on of like, I thought Canada without Sidney Crosby, keep in mind, or
huge
context. Shout out to Corey Massasak for pointing this out yesterday on Twitter, because I don't think enough people are talking about it. You know who else was missing? Josh Morrissey.
It's almost so much so that I thought I counted him out of our fake rosters.
Right. And
huge important piece.
That's a top 10 defenseman in the NHL.
Yeah.
Like that's a guy who, we're talking about offensively trying to get pucks past his teammate, Connor Hellebuyck. Like that is a guy who would have helped with offensive, chance creation,
right.
Transitioning from defense to offense. So I thought Canada, without those two players, still, I thought they looked further ahead than the U.S. team versus what we saw last year at Four Nations. I thought at Four Nations, it looked like, wow, these programs are really close. I watched that game yesterday and said, yeah, what you and I have been talking about, the high-end talent of Canada is still just much higher than the U.S. They controlled 40 minutes of that game. They leaned on the United States for 40 minutes. And Connor Hellebuyck was the difference. And where I'm going with that is just really thoroughly impressed by the game the Canadians played.
Yeah, I am too. I think our earlier conversation too, when the medal game comes down to a single goal difference and it's a matter of who can break through offensively. One goaltender is having a great performance. It's why Radko Gudas would not have done Canada much good in this situation compared to a Josh Morrissey too. Right. And so I think that's the tricky thing for the Avs to weigh, and like the type of team they're trying to construct is, I think Team USA having players who are willing to do good things defensively helped their case. I think that's why the penalty kill was so good. I even found myself walking away with like a different opinion of Austin Matthews from what I started with. I thought there were some good plays, like stick plays in the slot to break up some of those chances that Canada was trying to create, where there was just so clearly good momentum too that they were creating with. And so I was like, okay, actually was more impressed than with like Matthews' defensive game, walking away from it. Brock Nelson too, like there was a play along the wall on Drew Doughty, forced a turnover. And so I think too, I don't know what it ended up being, but the face-off percentage of all the centers for Team USA was like top 5 across the tournament. And so I think just those little things USA recognized would give them an advantage in this tournament, because I think they also knew from the superstar power impact, they might not be able to go toe-to-toe, but if they can go toe-to-toe in these other ways, it might just be enough. Of course, Hellebuyck playing great was a part of it, but I think it was those things put together that helped to get them the win.
I believe it was the World Cup was that 2016, when the U.S. took a lot of criticism because they built their team. They like over-engineered it based on what you were saying. Like, well, we're going to beat this team. We can't go toe-to-toe with them, so we're going to build this, shut you down, lock it up, blah, blah, blah. And it just didn't have enough skill going the other way, where I think the U.S. nailed it is they had just enough of that high-end skill.
Yes, it was still really important.
Yeah. They balanced a well-rounded roster that could defend well. And look, like this, what I'm about to say here is just a fact. They lose that game without Connor Hellebuyck. So like he was the most important guy for them yesterday. But even though Canada controlled that game, the U.S. didn't get their like heads caved in. You know what I mean? Like, far from that. If what I'm saying here makes sense. Like,
no, because I'm thinking of plays like they're surviving a couple really quality chances, but they're able to break out pucks and get out of their own end, and they don't look panicked doing it.
Right.
And that's a credit to Team USA.
Right.
I'm looking at Slavin. I'm looking at McAvoy too as being kind of key proponents in some of what I'm describing there.
Yep. It's not like they won that game yesterday on Connor Hellebuyck and they were outshot, 60-10, and Canada just dominated the whole game. They had that win, like they had several shifts, even when Canada had the ice tilted, that the U.S. would hem Canada in their own zone, not allow them to break the puck out, turn pucks back around at the red line, transition quickly, high danger chances. Like they had we're going to chess match you into, being able to neutralize what you're doing. But then when we need to get up and go north, they had the horses to do that.
I think so too. And so that's where the skill of Jack Hughes was on display, ahead of the winning goal. Werenski, especially in transition, so good. And so I think that what you're describing makes a lot of sense. It's like they knew what about Canada's game they'd have to counter. It's not as if they can just stop Canada from playing their game altogether, but they can endure it and they'll survive it. And so I think they recognize how they can be able to do it and then pick their moments when they'd get them, be opportunistic when they'd get them.
Does sound like we're talking about the Dallas Stars.
Doesn't it? And so I'm like, look, this sucks. I don't want to try and put a positive spin on what this means for Nathan MacKinnon, Kel McCarr, Devon Taves. I hope that there's a lot of learning lessons, though, of what coming up against games like this means, because there are more to come. Yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah. No, for sure. It's a great call out. And just again, like I think the U.S. having a little bit more skill in that department, and look, Connor Hellebuyck's part of the team. Like he's he's
he's
a
say in it,
right? Just like everyone else. So I think having that a little bit higher end skill, combined with the fact that your goaltending is in maybe the best spot it's ever been, if you're the United States, like that was the difference, and that was all they needed. I did feel bad, and I saw it being shared around today in its entirety. You decide, you be the judge of who the better team was taken horribly out of context. That being said, though, Megan, even if it wasn't, he's right. Nathan MacKinnon's not wrong.
I just knew immediately he was being taken out of context.
For
I
sure.
feel so bad for Nathan MacKinnon because he, has this reputation of being prickly with the media and just being a certain type of way that he wasn't even given the benefit of the doubt as to what he could mean or how could that be received in a more practical lens. It was just taken out of context to derive the worst possible meaning, that not only he's saying it in this way, because I agree, I think Canada was dominant, but they outplayed him and they didn't get the winning result. That's really tough, right? But it's being framed in such a way that MacKinnon's sour grapes about it, right? And it's just, Nathan MacKinnon is such a critical self-assessor. He is not just sour grapes, like we deserve to win and that's final.
Right.
That's just not what he's saying.
So here's the full quote. Quote, "It's been close for a while. They're an amazing, skilled group of players. It just felt like it wasn't going to be. You guys can be the judge of who the better team was tonight, but they won, we lost."
Which is an entirely different meaning. It's
right.
He's said something like this to us before, of kind of like, it's your job to create the narrative, not mine.
Right.
So you create the narrative you want about this game.
Right. And the article or the quote was given to Pierre Lebrun, TSN, and what Pierre wrote in the next sentence following said, "That's not sour grapes. MacKinnon is always one to simply state facts. Team Canada dominated Team USA for the last two periods of regulation, outshooting them 42-28 overall." So that wasn't Nate being prickly or mean or putting the US down. That was an honest assessment of the game. And I also love what you just said about he's always been that way. You guys,
right?
You decide who you think was better. That's not up for me to tell you.
Right. I think his stance is really neutral and leaving it up to media to create the narrative there, because it's our jobs.
And very high praise for Team USA as well.
Yeah. Poor Nate.
I know. Well, and
are you thinking of the stuffed animal?
Yes.
Yeah.
But before we get to that, I do want to talk about overtime in particular. We are going to circle back to the stuffed animal. Make no mistake. Overtime. Canada had a couple looks. US had a couple looks. I want to talk about the golden goal, everything that led up to that. I've seen a couple of people try to pin it on Nate or Kale or whatever, but I've mostly seen that not really be the case. And I've seen people push back on that. I didn't see any mistakes. I saw two guys that made split-second decisions, and I saw one of them hesitate for a half second and then read a play, took a gamble on what was going to happen, and it went the other way. Cale Makar stepping up for that pinch. And you even see him put his foot sideways. He's trying to kick a puck. That is a play where Cale Makar made a split-second decision. If Cale wins that puck, Megan, it's a Cale Makar, Connor McDavid 2-on-0 in overtime. And that probably ends up in the back of the net, right? Puck bounces over his skate. It's a 3-on-1 going the other way, but it's a loose puck. There's a race. And Nathan MacKinnon, I thought, hesitated for half a second, not even half a second. Hesitated for a moment of, can I get there? Yes. And then when I watch the replay, I see Nathan MacKinnon make the bet that Zach Werenski is going to swing at the puck to try to get it to the middle. So if you watch Nate, he pulls up and kind of puts his feet together.
I'm rewatching it as you're talking about it.
And then Werenski doesn't just swipe at it. They kind of come together. Werenski gets the better of it, and suddenly that puck is sitting there. Jack Hughes is wide open. I thought both goals that Jordan Binnington gave up were soft. That's just me. But like I said, I saw both Cale and Nate make 50-50 decisions. I thought Cale's was in the sense of, I'm going to be aggressive and go for it. I'm going to play I'm going to play to win, not to not lose. And then I saw Nate saying, I'm predicting that he's going to try to get a stick on this to the middle. And that wasn't what Zach Werenski ended up skating all the way through the puck. What did you see? What are your thoughts?
Yeah. Pretty similarly. And honestly, like Nate has the initial contact with Werenski to tie him up to try and prevent any sort of a centering feed. And he's just able to, after enduring the contact, reset and still get that pass off. And so at that point, Nate's already discombobulated from the contact that he was committed to in trying to engage Werenski and take away the lane that way. And so I don't know. I don't see players who bailed out, gave up on their assignments in this moment. I think even looking back, let me actually come back here. McDavid has a tough decision to make. There's two different decisions that could be made here that he's trying to account for, and it ends up just being Hughes shooting. I'm not going to blame him for making the wrong decision there. And then I don't know if Makar had some more jet fuel, if he could have been any sort of a difference in this play at all either, just because I don't think his decision to pinch earlier in the play was the wrong one.
Right.
And I actually am encouraged because there's an element of Makar right now that isn't playing with enough confidence, like isn't shooting enough when given the opportunities. And so when given the opportunities to kind of go for a stick play and try to pinch in the D zone there, I'm glad that's a player who tried to step into it and play.
It was a confident play.
Yeah, kind of chips to the middle. Obviously doesn't reward him, so that burns a little bit. But really what this all boils down to is Binnington needed to make a save. That's what this boiled down. That's why I am so not here for the Cale Makar isn't the defender people think that he is, slander conversation. He still has a Stanley Cup to his name that he rightfully earned. Conn Smythe, Norris, like there's so much to his name that he earned of his own merit too. He just wasn't in proximity to these winning moments. He played a huge role in them as well. So I'm not here for the slander around Cale Makar. And I do think his confidence has dipped a little bit this year, born from the Dallas series. I think that really influenced his willingness to just take the shot because we've talked about it a lot. Dallas's defensive structure picked up on him as a threat and was designed so specifically to contain him and Nathan MacKinnon. So I think he went into this season a little bit in his head on what he wants to do, how he wants to do it. And there's been, a little bit of hesitancy shown in his game at times or playing it safe. And so I do want to see a confident Cale Makar who doesn't always play it safe. I know this feels like the worst timing to say that. But yeah, I'm not here for the Cale Makar isn't that great slander.
I don't know if I fully buy this. I did see someone yesterday talking about how they thought maybe part of the reason that McDavid and Makar weren't trying to get back as hard as they could have is that they thought Nate was going to win the puck. And if Nate wins the puck, we're going north and giving him somewhere to throw it.
It's a really fair guess.
Yeah. Like I said, I don't know. I'm not in the heads of those players, but
maybe they thought Binnington would make a save.
And then suddenly, because again, that's kind of like 3-on-3. One team gets a chance to set up. 3-on-3 is usually won once the structure breaks down. Very rarely do you see one team get the puck, pass, zone, possession. Actually, the U.S. won a 3-on-3 game like that against Sweden. But like it usually comes when there's an odd man rush and a save or a missed shot, and then an odd man rush going the other way. And then it's just, okay, who's going to be the first one to capitalize on this chance trading? So that like I said, I saw that written out yesterday. I said, hey, I think that's a fair assessment that, hey, if Nate wins this puck, he's going to have 3 guys bearing down on him. We just have to give him an outlet, get the puck up off the wall, and these 2 guys can go.
Right.
But again, I don't know if that was actually the case, if they just didn't hustle back, if they were tired, if they were, at the end of a shift, whatever. But who knows? Maybe that was it as well. Then the puck does go to Jack Hughes. Like I said, I think if I'm Canada, I would like to see Binnington not do whatever he did there in an attempt to make that save. Maybe, I don't know, seal the ice with a pad, a stick, something. But it's a huge goal for USA Hockey. And I don't even mean the team that won the gold medal yesterday. They all already play for Team USA. I'm talking about the fact that, Megan, like I told you, or, we were talking before, and like, when you grow up in the US and you play hockey, you have to register, I have a USA Hockey number and, all that stuff. You have to be registered under the governing body. And it being a sport that I'm so passionate about, care so deeply about, has given me so much, is a community that I'm really proud to be a part of, that I speak so highly of. I get so excited to think about what that game means for hockey in the United States, not just from, player participation, but also enthusiasm and viewership and people going to games. How many people are going to buy a ticket to an NHL game because of that game? How many people watched the excitement of what that entire 60 minutes was, and then to get to see, the United States win? How many people in the United States are saying, we have to go to a game? How much are tickets on Thursday? We have to go. That was so awesome. Oh, Brock Nelson's playing. It's going to be the first game. We have to go see them honor Brock Nelson. How many people are going to do that? And that, to me, is what that goal and that game and that result represented. And that is what I'm excited about, is what that means for the growth of the sport within the United States. I've always found international best on best to be complicated, for me at least. I don't really consider myself to be a fan of the Colorado Avalanche anymore. We have such different relationships with the team, with the players. I like to see individuals have success. And then you and I joke all the time, I do root for a happy locker room. That is always a nice thing.
Right.
But like I said, I've always found myself conflicted, because you're not going to get me to root for Nathan MacKinnon, Cale Makar, and Devon Toews to not have success. You're not going to get that out of me. So like I got to kind of enjoy yesterday as just like, this is a great game, and whoever wins, there's people on both sides that I'm happy for. That's what I see when I see that puck go in, and you see all the different shots on social media and stuff like that of the watch parties and people up at 6 a.m. packing bars and going over to friend's house and all that stuff. Like, that is what makes me really excited about that game yesterday.
Yeah, I love seeing the West Coast representation too, for just how early that wake up was for a lot of United States people and Canada people watching from the West Side, because it was pretty early. But yeah, I think the visibility and the growth of the game is important. And I have different ties to different players because I love this sport.
Mm-hmm.
And so there were plenty of players on US that I had personal stakes. Like it was easy to root for Brock Nelson.
Right.
It was easy to root for Brock Faber, Charlie McAvoy. Feel a little sad about things today, but it was easy to root for those guys. My friends from Montana. So, yeah, there've been guys that have been easy to root for.
Well, and to your point about having ties to specific guys, my sister texted me after the U.S. beat Sweden. She's like, "Oh, that was awesome." And I was like, "Yeah." When Gabe had that one-timer in overtime, I was really, for him, hoping that it was going to go in. Like, just because that would have been a really fun storyline. Gabe Landeskog, comes all the way back from all this and scores in overtime to send his team to the semifinals at the Olympics. So, like, I was just telling her, I was like, yeah, like, that's a fun result. There was another really fun result that I could have also seen playing out in that game.
Yeah.
That would have unfortunately resulted in the U.S. losing.
Right.
But again, like, that's, I don't I don't do a ton of cheering for teams necessarily.
No, but it's easy to root for people.
It's easy to root for people.
Colorado kid Slavin. I've always had a really high opinion of him.
Yep. And that's something too, where like, it was during the summer games a couple years ago. I said, it's so funny. You have some of these athletes from these smaller nations, like it means everything to them and the country for them to be there. And I was like, I just feel like it's not quite the same for the US. And one of our international folks here in the building said, well, think about if there was someone representing Colorado at the Olympics. I was like, oh, that'd be dope. I was like, that'd be awesome. They're like, it's kind of the same thing.
Yeah.
And so, like you said, Slavin. But no, so, I just love that we got great hockey yesterday. And like you said, easy to root for Brock Nelson. I feel for Nathan MacKinnon and Cale Makar. And before we get into U.S. post-game, we have to talk about the stuffed animal. I don't know. I don't think we're allowed to show the clip of it here because it was technically on the Olympic broadcast. For those of you who don't know what we're talking about, every Olympic athlete who medaled, and this is true going back several Olympics, they used to get flowers as well as a little prize. They've done away with the flowers. So they go down the line and hand medal everybody, put their medals on. And then a second IOC executive, I'm assuming, comes down the line and is shaking hands, handing them. And I believe, Megan, the idea behind it is you can only, like, the only people that get these little stuffed animals are medalists, Olympic medalists. So they then come back through the line and they're handing all of them their award-winning stuffed animals. And Nathan MacKinnon had exactly the response that you would expect. He even looked, Megan, surprised that the guy was putting something in his hand. Like, it wasn't just like a, what the hell is this? When the guy shook his hand and then started to hand him something, Nate was like, what do you... And then the look on his face, the small little head shake. I loved it. Watched it about 50 times.
Yeah, I guess there's a line of people ahead of him receiving it, so I'm not sure what the surprise was. It was almost as if there was this, surely this man knows better than to put that in my hand right now.
That was exactly what I thought too.
Surely he's been alerted that this is just not a good idea. And so when he does get handed it, it's kind of like, well, yeah, everyone else before you did get handed this, and they all just accepted it. Right. Didn't even look at it because they know it. I shouldn't say it holds no value to them. And I saw someone point out online that a lot of the dads or like pet owners also immediately knew, I'm giving this to my child. Like, it's not a big deal. I don't need to decide what I'm going to do with this item right now.
Well, to your point too, like the Canadian women went to the same thing the day or two before. Like, you should have known that this was coming, that they were going to hint you. But I think you're totally right, Megan. It was because Nate he was very cordial and respectful in the handshake. Right. Thank you. And then it was when he handed him the stuffed animal that was like, what? And I love that. Surely this man knows better than to hand me one of these, right?
Right.
Everyone else, not me. He knows that. Hand 2 to the next person. They'll give me one later.
Yeah.
And, oh, here we go. Yep. Let's see. Got another one from Bailey. We are going to need a wellness check on that. What do you call him? Stuffed animal?
Isn't he a weasel?
Oh, because I've seen a lot of people call him stuffies.
Olympic mascot. Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
I was just trying to think. Oh, he's what is he? Oh, Tina and Mila. What were they?
Yeah, because I was saying, it was like 2 stuffed animals like sewn together.
Stoat.
A what?
Oh, a stoat.
What? That's not a thing, is it?
Brown stoat.
It says that stuffed animal is for sure going to be a dog toy for Maggie. Yeah. If it made it back, I would not be surprised if Nathan MacKinnon walked off the ice and dropped that thing in the nearest trash can. Maybe not. Maybe he does have like the foresight, like, all right, take a step back, take it home, give it to your kid or your dog. Like,
Right.
Whatever.
That is his kid.
Right. Shifting gears, and Megan, we're not going to spend a ton of time on this. And we're not going to talk about all of it because I get there's varying opinions and all that stuff. There was something from Team USA postgame that we did want to touch on. And again, it's, in my opinion, and we talked about it before, it's separate from all the other stuff. And like, they're still partying. They're back in Miami as of like right as we were starting the show. They had just landed. Look, celebrate how you want to celebrate. I am not here to put a damper on people getting, wasted and all that shit. You got games to go back to. You have pro teams that you got to get back to. Darren Drager was reported this morning that the Maple Leafs are confused on when Austin Matthews is getting back to Toronto. I think you got to get that sorted out. But there was something you wanted to make sure that we touched on.
Yeah, it was just the disappointment of the reaction from the men's team in the phone call with Donald Trump. The joke made about the women's team at
I have
the
to invite the
expense.
women's team.
Yeah. The framing, the tone of the joke. I have to just have to let you guys know that I'm going to have to invite the women's team or risk impeachment. It's such a bummer to see a lot of those men supporting the women's game leading up to this. The Hughes brothers, their mama, player development role with the USA women's team, a part of that gold winning medal. To see them laughing about the joke was really disappointing. And what I'd say too is I feel a level of exhaustion around reacting to something like this, because I understand that to a lot of people that is just a joke. It shouldn't be weighted very heavily, taken that seriously. But it is really disappointing when we're trying to see generally just a respect built around women's sports, and the invisible emotional labor that women take on in dealing with having their work undermined, undervalued. It takes a toll over the span of a lifetime, that these little things add up to just kind of reinforcement of a bigger problem that can be very frustrating to deal with. And to wake up, see that today, and just know that if I don't care about this, I don't know that anyone else is going to do the labor to care about it. That I see a lot of other women really upset with it. There have been other men I've seen upset with it too. But I know that as a woman, I can't afford to not care about this. But it is frustrating that it is labor that I have to take on too. That if I don't care about it, then it does just become locker room humor that we're okay with, to make jokes like that at the expense of women. And it just sucks. It's not funny.
Right.
A lot of it just wasn't funny. And all it takes is a single man in that room not laughing, maybe even having a sour expression on their face, for the others to maybe snap into a moment of courage, like, oh yeah, that's not really funny.
Or even had they broken into like a yeah you do USA, and again there was
like Megan,
there was one voice who chanted
two for two.
And Megan, you and I don't know if we ever gotten, not that we get into it, but like I don't think we've ever gotten it on a show necessarily. Like there's been plenty of stuff over the years where you and I have been, you'll say something like, I don't like that. I'm like, oh, it's a joke. So like, I'm not, someone who I think jokes can be jokes. I think they can be fine. I think they can be harmless.
Here's the thing. Sorry.
Nope.
This isn't political, actually.
No, it's not at all.
And
it's not.
If you feel that way, you're the one making it that way.
I completely agree. And
this isn't a stance on...
Did I not even say that before we started? I said, if anybody would have made that joke, I would think it's bad joke.
In poor taste. And I think that there are ways men can be allies to women in that space by just like not finding it funny. And so the 2 for 2, and it's just anyone that laughed, like, even if it's that kind of courtesy laugh that you do on instinct, you don't actually have to do that.
Well, and so here's what I was going to say, Megan, because I went on that whole diatribe right before this of talking about growing the game is something I'm extremely passionate about. It's something I really, really care about. And I'm just with you, Megan. Again, it was a joke.
You're free to disagree with me if you present something worthy of consideration.
It was it was a joke. It was not a funny one. It wasn't a good one. The reason it bothers me is for what we were just talking about of growing the game. And I don't like anything that puts barriers up for that makes light of hockey at the highest levels. And I didn't care for it. I'm right there with you. I think there was a way that the players could have responded to that. Cause I believe, and I don't want to, it's not that you didn't like the joke. It was the response to it that just felt like, we're in on the joke. And I just, like I said, we spent so much of this pod talking about awesome growth in the women's game and what that win yesterday meant for hockey in the United States. And notice I did not say men's or women's hockey in the United States. That is what I care so much about. That's one of my great passions in life. And I think stuff like that, comments like that is destructive to growing the game to as many corners of the world, community, genders, walks of life, whatever. That is what I want. I want everyone to know and love this sport. And I think when you make jokes like that in the tone that it was made and what was implied there, I just don't think that's productive.
No, it could have been a moment of celebration for both the men and women's team. Instead, it was used to assign just the littlest bit of lesser
and if
negative value.
And if he would have even taken the word or the words have to,
we get to,
and I'm going to invite the women as well. Like that would have just like, it's just a totally different thing. So I'm with you. And again, like I said, I wanted to make that point of like, I don't think I sit here and, and the fun police. And I don't think you are either. That was just something where it's like, hey, I think this pod has been a lot about growth of the game. Grow the game. You guys, the U.S. men's hockey team yesterday, and currently right now, they have an unbelievable platform to advocate for growth of the game. The women won the gold medal as well. That's just what I want to see more of.
Fashion.
Yep.
It just was worthy of so much more pride and celebration for it to be spoken about like that.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. Just real quick, when I was saying earlier off the top that I didn't think the women were going to get that tying goal, I was sitting there going, you're going to outscore your opponent 35-2 in a tournament and somehow end up with a silver medal. Right. So that was the number one reason more than anything. I was happy they won. I was like, that's such a ridiculous stat line. There's no way you can finish second. But like I said, that was my big thing with it was, especially here in the United States, for the first time ever, we should be celebrating the growth of all of it. Nobody's forcing anybody to include anybody in these celebrations. And I just want to see hockey in the United States be embraced and however form that comes.
Yeah.
And I'm with you. Like I with as much progress as we've seen, women's sports in general, 2, the PWHL, I don't like anything that seeks to intentionally go against that progress being made.
Yeah.
Anything else on that?
No.
I did, before we wrap things up, anything else on US Canada, the game?
No.
Because I did want to just wind things down here a bit on the 3 other Olympians that weren't in that game. Or I guess that weren't in 3? Who am I missing? Oh, Marty, who we already talked about. I want to talk about 3 other Olympians that we haven't talked about. The 2 Finns, Lecky and Kiviranta, and then Gabe Landeskog. All of whom I thought, were highly impactful throughout the entire tournament. The Avs run away from every other NHL team in terms of how they contributed at the Olympics. Was it 18? Was that the final tally?
Yeah, I think it was 18.
18 goals scored for Avalanche players.
It was 17, and then Kale would have made it 18.
Right? So 18 goals for the Colorado Avalanche at the Olympics. Again, I haven't checked to see after the gold medal game, but I believe still the next closest was San Jose with 8. Macklin Celebrini making up 5 of those. Everybody got involved. Gabe Landeskog opens the scoring for Sweden at the tournament. Arturi Lehkonen scores in overtime to send them on to the semifinals. And then Joel Kiviranta, 2 shots, 2 goals, 100% shooting percentage for Joel Kiviranta. For Gabe, any thoughts on what we saw? I thought if you're the Avs, that was nice for him to get to shake some of that rust off here over 2 weeks.
Yeah, and I'm glad he got the experience. I know it didn't end the way that he would have hoped, but I think that he had missed some time, so to get back into those games is already just significant progress, and to be a difference maker for Sweden was pretty significant too. So I hope that he comes out of this break feeling as rested as he should be, and ready to get back to 100%, because there's still so much more for all of the Avs to play for in this season. So they shouldn't hang their heads too low.
And then I lied. There is one more thing I want to talk about before we do this, but it's going to be quick. Lecky and Kivy, to me, like, what's so fun about those 2 players is like Finnish hockey. Like that's them. That's them personified. When we talked earlier about, like when the Finns got up 2-0, you sit there and you're like, oh man, can Canada even climb back into this game? It's because you have just a bunch of guys out there like Arturi Lehkonen that are just dogs on the puck.
Yeah.
And it's so fun to see those guys get to play within that system.
Yes. I feel like we've talked about a lot of.
Did we talk about the Finns? Am I
on other
rehashing?
shows? I feel like leading up to because they've been eliminated for a little bit.
They've been done for a little bit. But like I said, I thought it was really fun. Last thing, we're ending it on this. I think I even texted you before the overtime for the women's game started. If it wasn't you, it was someone else. I said, I don't like this being 20 minutes of 3-on-3 for a gold medal game. And I felt the exact same way yesterday, not because of results or whatever. I just feel like you come to an epic conclusion of the way that the women, to your point, the U.S. women played in that tournament, and you have to decide it on 3-on-3 overtime. And then I let the men's side, there was so much parity, like we talked about. Every game was just fantastic. And you end it with 3-on-3 overtime. Neither overtime lasted very long. I get the argument of as the tournament goes along, you need to make sure that the schedule stays moving. The games need to have an end. Completely agree. That game yesterday was the last event of the Olympics. The only thing you had to get to was the closing ceremonies. The women's game was the last event of the day. There was nothing happening after that. Why couldn't you go 5-on-5 or at least 4-on-4 like it's always been? I just did not. I didn't like it for either game. I did not like deciding a gold medal on 3-on-3.
Yeah, I saw somebody say that, well, what would the Olympic Committee do if you just put 5 players on the ice?
Yes.
What are they going to do about it?
Just going to keep calling us for too many men? Try.
Yeah, that could be bad. But yeah, it's a shame because the result feels like it has a little bit of an asterisk by it. Then it's just different hockey. But I guess too, they are used to 3-on-3 as a format for overtime from the NHL. That there's some semblance of, well, it's nothing new to them necessarily either. But I think for the entertainment value of why they do it in the NHL, I'm going to use the word gimmicky. It's like a little bit gimmicky. And in an 82-game season, to keep things moving, just felt like this was different circumstance. One, you don't need entertainment or gimmick. It's the Olympics.
Right.
It's a medal game.
Right.
And there's nothing else after this. There aren't, I don't know, however many games left in the season, 40 plus games. So
right. And because we'll get into arguments like as a media group after shootouts, like as we wait for Jared to come into the press room and stuff like that. And there's people like, oh, I hate it. It's dumb to decide a game like that. And I'm with you. In the NHL regular season medal round, you have to get a preliminary round. You have to get to a winner eventually. Someone needs to win, and we need to all be able to go home tonight. Because there's practice tomorrow, and there's 50 more games this season. But when you get to the moment where it all exactly what the NHL does in the playoffs, when this is to decide something really big and important, play it. Play it at 5-on-5, how it's supposed to be played. I would have just rather seen both the men and women at least go to 4-on-4 for overtime. If you want to play 4-on-4 for 20 minutes and then change it to 3-on-3, fine. I would have just liked to see both sides get a chance to play out. Because also, I do just feel like we got gypped on game a little bit. Both ended really quick.
Yeah.
And I would just like to see the drama continue.
Yeah, they could have, honestly, from an entertainment perspective, they could have milked the drama a little bit more.
Right. Or go to I'm going to say 3-on-3, but don't make it sudden death. But then you get rid of the golden goal thing. And I don't know. You had 7 years to plan the scheduling of it. Build in a buffer so your gold medal games can just be 5-on-5 continuous OT.
Yeah.
Whew. At least it didn't go to a shootout. And again, don't get me wrong. In 2018, I loved the drama of the gold medal shootout for the U.S. and Canadian women just because I love drama. But even still, I remember watching that going, you shouldn't be doing this in a shootout.
Right. But it's not really.
You shouldn't be doing this in a shootout.
But I see that's the thing. That's my take on shootouts is I do think they're fun for the drama, like in the regular season, in the NHL.
Right. When you've got time for drama.
Yeah.
Sure. Bring it.
Yeah.
And
I don't know. There's always a little time for drama.
Well, so this will be my final point for the day. Here's where I draw the line. When people complain about the shootout and you go, well, what would you rather them do? Just keep playing 3-on-3. It's like, nope, your argument's invalid. In my opinion, Megan, 3-on-3 is just as gimmicky as a shootout.
I mean, I just used the word gimmicky. I felt a little bad, but it is a little gimmicky.
That's not how hockey's played.
That's not for the players.
Right.
They didn't get together and decide this is when we are at our best.
Right.
This is what we love.
So again, I think if you're anti-shootout and your solution is 3-on-3, come up with a better solution. That is gonna do it. Marathon pod, easily our longest just pod. Big shout out to John. I'm sure his butt cheeks are needing to get up from the seat, probably numb from sitting there for so long. So apologize to him. Thank you all for sticking with us through an hour and 42 minutes. We are ready for the NHL to get back started. Practice tomorrow for the Avs, and then games start back up on Wednesday. We are right back in it. She's Megan. I'm Jesse. John behind the glass. I think Mark snuck back there too. Just shout out Mark in general. We'll talk to you guys later. Bye.